Hi everyone, this is Wayne Rivers at Performance Construction Advisors, where we build better contractors. This week I want to talk about 5 sources of insignificance at work and how to combat them. So this comes from the Chief Executive Briefing, May 15th, written by Zach Mercurio, who has a book coming out called The Power of Mattering. And he has 5 tips for combating insignificance in the workplace. Now, insignificance means people don't feel like they're heard, cared about, nurtured, given opportunities to develop their skills. And he says these 5 tips are key to making people feel like they matter and they're important in your organization. The first thing is people feel unseen. It's often unintentional. If you're a busy executive and you've got 100 people in your shop, or 500 or 1,000 as some of our members have, you've got 26 balls that you're juggling in the air at any given time. And it's easy to walk down the hallway with your head down, thinking about the next problem, the next challenge, the next meeting, the next call, whatever. So make sure that you check in with your people. The number 1 tip here is names. Remember people's names. Be proactive. He wrote about one executive that once a week as an exercise writes down all the names of the people in her department so that she can make double sure that she remembers their names. And she also tries to put down something about their hobbies or their families or something of personal nature so that she can relate to them on that level as well. Failing to make eye contact is a big one. Failing to ask people about their personal lives. How's it going at home? How are the kids? that kind of stuff. And then finally, ask better questions. So what's been most meaningful about your day? People say, how was your day? And I say, I don't even know how to answer that question. What's been most meaningful for you today? Make the question specific. What are you struggling with and how can I help you? Those questions are much more direct and should get a more meaningful response than, how's your day or how's your week? The second thing, people feel unheard. They feel like their ideas are dismissed. Nobody asks them for their opinions. Here, Mercurio says you've got to have psychological safety in your organization. How many times have we talked about that? Basically, psychological safety is being able to speak up in the workplace without the fear that a ton of bricks is going to fall on you in response. Have ground rules for your speakers in meetings. People interrupt. People don't let others finish their thoughts before jumping in or maybe going in a completely different direction. Listen actively. Ban devices from your meetings. That's a rule that we have here. I don't enforce it as rigidly as I should sometimes, but keep devices out of your meetings. Unless you need something, you need a spreadsheet to project on. But listening, all these devices, the laptops, the tablets, the phones, they get between us as human beings, and they block active listening. And then follow up and check in. When you say, you're going to have that for me next week, make sure you check in and make sure that you're listening to your folks and holding them accountable, which is another way of having them heard versus unheard. The third thing is unvalued. People can't see how they're contributing. I come into this shop every day, every week, and what's it all about? I don't even know. Make sure, and here this comes again, make sure you know people's names, and if possible, what's their unique ability? Another thing we've talked about many, many times. What do they uniquely contribute? Are they super organized and you should give them more responsibility for organizing the work of other people? What's their unique ability in the workplace? And try to share stories. You've heard me say before, now we start every meeting with appreciations. So share the stories of how Neha did this or Karen did that, and begin with appreciations in the workplace. Those little things go a long ways. The fourth thing, forgotten. Like, for example, not even noticing when somebody was gone for a week or something. Were they ill? Were they on vacation? What's going on? So not even knowing that somebody was gone from the organization might tell you something about yourself, but it might tell you something about what that person does or does not contribute. Again, remember people's names and know how to pronounce them correctly. If you do notice somebody has been missing from the workplace, whether for illness or vacation or whatever, ask about their perspective. We had a meeting last week and this happened, XYZ happened. We got some good ideas. What are your ideas? So, fold them back into the organization once they return from being out. Yeah, I've got a story about that. That's for another vlog, perhaps. And the fifth thing, people feel dispensable. And Mercurio wrote that skills may be replaceable, but people are not. You understand the distinction? People are bigger than the actual skill set they bring to the workforce. They're more complicated. Make sure you inform your folks. Make sure they know that their work is necessary. And even, especially if you can measure it. If you can measure it and you can say, wow, that was supposed to be an 8-month job. You guys brought it in 2 weeks early. That's amazing. If you can measure the difference they make in the organization, that has even more impact. Now, if you notice of these 5 tips, 3 of them dealt with knowing people's names, knowing how to spell them, knowing how to pronounce them correctly, and remembering those names. So if you don't take anything else away from this vlog, make sure that you know the names of everybody in your orbit. Maybe you don't need to know, the person working on a job 700 miles away, but for the people in your sphere of influence, make sure you know those names, make eye contact, listen, and you go a long ways to making people feel seen and heard in your workplace. What tips have you got? Send me an email at wrivers@performanceconstruction.com. This is Wayne Rivers at PCA, where we build better contractors.